So there was an awesome moment during the Supreme Court hearing for Ketanji Brown Jackson. You have, who is this again? Oh, fuck, is this John Cornyn? I forget this guy's name, and I don't know why. Hold on.
I don't know.
Oh, it is Cornyn. Okay. Anyway, sorry. So we have this awesome moment in the hearing for Ketanji Brown Jackson to be on the Supreme Court. And you have John Cornyn exasperated, just saying, did you call Bush and Cheney war criminals? Or I think it was just George Bush. Did you, or maybe Bush and Rumsfeld, something like that. Did you call them war criminals? And so Ketanji Brown Jackson gives a very political answer here because, of course, she's trying to get on the Supreme Court. She can't, make the entire Republican Party despise her. She has to be sophisticated about how to approach this and intelligent, and she's got to navigate these choppy waters. But I love, you're going to see what Cornyn asks, you're going to see her response, and then you're going to see, I think it's Dick Durbin jumps in and gives the full context of it about, where this claim comes from that Ketanji Brown Jackson called Bush a war criminal. And the context is awesome because it is like the most revealing, enlightening moment of all time. Watch.
Just ask, I don't know you well, but I've been impressed by our interaction, and you've been gracious and charming. Why in the world would you call Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld and George W. Bush war criminals in a legal filing? It seems so out of character for you.
Senator, you may have been are you talking about briefs or habeas petitions that I filed?
Talking about when you were representing a member of the Taliban, and the Department of Defense identified him as an intelligence officer for the Taliban, and you referred to the Secretary of Defense and the sitting President of the United States as war criminals. Why would you do something like that? It seems so out of character.
Well, Senator, I don't remember that particular reference, and I was representing my clients and making arguments. I'd have to take a look at what you meant. I did not intend to disparage the president or the Secretary of Defense.
Well, being a war criminal has huge ramifications. You could be subject to the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court and hauled before that international tribunal and tried for war crimes. So it's not a casual comment, I would suggest. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cornyn. Senator Whitehouse. I would like to make a statement in terms of some research that was undertaken during the break. Judge Jackson, earlier Senator Cornyn said that you had called former President George W. Bush and Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld a, quote, war criminal, unquote. I noticed a little surprise in your reaction, and I was surprised by the allegation. During your service as a public defender, you filed several habeas petitions against the United States, naming former President Bush and former Secretary Rumsfeld in their official capacities. You were advocating on behalf of individuals who argued they were civilians wrongly classified as enemy combatants of the United States, and your filing was part of your professional responsibility to zealously advocate for your clients. In those petitions, the individuals raised more than a dozen claims for relief, one of which was an allegation that the government had sanctioned torture against the individuals, which constituted war crimes under the Alien Tort Statute. The Alien Tort Statute allows courts to hear cases for alleged violations of the law of nations or the treaties of the United States. Apparently, this is what Senator Cornyn was referencing. So to be clear, there was no time where you called President Bush or Secretary Rumsfeld a, quote, war criminal, close quote. Did you want
Correct,
to respond?
Senator. No,
Okay.
Thank you. That was correct.
Thank you very much. We now recognize Senator Lee.
That was awesome. So do you understand what happened there? The response is, I didn't call you a war criminal. It's just that you were officially charged as one in a court filing. Oh. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. That's just beautiful. It's the biggest self-own ever of Cornyn against Bush and Rumsfeld, like Republican self-own. Now, by the way, as I was watching this, I was thinking, this is why a guy like me could never get in any sort of official position. Because when they say, why did you call Bush and Rumsfeld war criminals? I'd say, because they are. Next question. I mean, that's the truth. They are. Now, again, some people would look at that and say, well, why didn't she say that? And guys, she's not a talk show host. She is trying to get on the Supreme Court where she can affect positive change. And her record, by the way, is much better than anybody else who is being considered for this position by Biden. And in order to get on that court, yeah, you have to smooth the rough edges off of the reality here. You got to be nuanced, and you got to find a way to not blow up your attempt to get on the court. So I have no issue whatsoever with how she reacted there. I think that it was an intelligent, sophisticated way where she's not blowing up her chances. And I mean, she did say, like, what was this in a habeas petition? Like, what? So, and the answer is basically, yes, it is. So why did you call them war criminals? I didn't, but they were officially charged as them because they are that. Sorry, that might be politically incorrect and hurt your feelings to point that out, but it's the reality. So, I mean, you guys don't need to hear this rant. I've done it 1,000 times, but you know what? Just on the off chance somebody watching this video is the first time they're watching a secular talk video, which, by the way, it's probably not because YouTube likes to not spread our things far and wide like they used to do. Anyway, so everybody knows the Bush administration did torture. Now, torture is illegal under U.S. law, the Constitution, and international law. So you have an Eighth Amendment protection from cruel and unusual punishment. The government can't torture people. That is cruel and unusual punishment. But they did do that. There was, during World War II, Japanese soldiers waterboarded U.S. soldiers. Our response to that, when the war was over, we prosecuted them as war criminals and put them to death. So when Japan did it against us, it's torture and you should be put to death. When we do it against others, it's not torture, it's enhanced interrogation, and we allow it to be legal. An absolute colossal joke. And by the way, it wasn't just waterboarding. Now, Christopher Hitchens very famously said, because there was a debate at the time, is it torture? Is it not torture? Dumbest debate of all time. Mucked up. Christopher Hitchens was like, I don't know, I'm going to find out. And he was like, I'm going to get waterboarded, see if I think it's torture. After he did it, and he was agnostic at first, after he did it, he came back and said, it is 100% without a doubt torture. You are drowning when they waterboard you. Now, beyond that, we did way more than that. We did sleep deprivation. We did loud music torture. There were people who died as a result of our torture. One of the things we did is threw cold water on somebody and left them handcuffed in a cold cell at night, and they died. They died. And there are endless examples of this. It happened at Abu Ghraib. It happened at Guantanamo Bay. I mean, really disgusting, authoritarian, barbaric acts here. That's what we did. And by the way, of course, the cherry on top is, as you guys know, a lot of the people who we had locked up at Guantanamo Bay in particular were innocent because we had cut a deal with warlords in Afghanistan and Pakistan and said, send us the guys who attacked us on 9/11, send us Al-Qaeda, and they just shipped to us their political enemies. They didn't actually try to find Al-Qaeda. They were just like, here, yeah, this is Al-Qaeda. So, yeah, those are war crimes. Without a doubt, it's a war crime. It's not up in the air. It's not a question. It's a war crime. Now, again, Republicans might not like that because, but we're the good guys, and when we do bad things, it's good because we mean well or something. No. That is the hallmark of a hypocrite, and that is the definition of not having an objective standard. That's the definition of not enforcing law and order for everybody. And Republicans love to, we believe in law and order, unless our guys commit crimes, in which case it's awesome, and we don't believe in law and order. Horrendous. The other thing, of course, they ripped up the Constitution, no due process, no habeas corpus. They spied on the entire country, and it just had the rubber stamp FISA court. That, of course, that shouldn't be allowed. That's a violation of your Fourth Amendment protections from why am I blanking on this? It's not right to privacy. Fourth Amendment protections, unreasonable search and seizure. I don't know why I blanked on that phrase. I've said it a million times on the show, but it's early and my brain is not functioning. Anyway, the other thing is, and this is the most obvious one of all, they illegally invaded a country that didn't attack us. That's what the war in Iraq was. Now, the war in Afghanistan was slightly different. I still think it shouldn't have been done, but at least they had the argument of Osama bin Laden is hiding in Afghanistan, which, by the way, when we eventually got him, it was in Pakistan. But at the time, they said Osama bin Laden's hiding in Afghanistan. The Taliban is protecting al-Qaeda, so we went to war with Afghanistan now. I would have understood some sort of limited mission to just take out Osama or whatever, send in SEAL Team 6 or some shit. I would have understood that at the time after 9/11, of course. But they didn't do that. They did a war, and we were there for over 20 years, and the entire thing was... Quagmire is understating it. Debacle is understating it. It was an illegal occupation of that country, and there was endless war profiteering going on. There, the Afghanistan report came out where people in the military and in the government were like, why are we even there? What are we even doing? And of course, the defense contractors got phenomenally wealthy in that time frame. And there's a lot of mineral wealth in Afghanistan that we probably wanted to get our hands on top of doing it for geopolitical and geostrategic reasons. But Iraq was even worse. It was, Saddam is in bed with Osama bin Laden. That's why we're going. Well, that turned out not to be true. Now, when we turned out it wasn't true, did we just withdraw and say, our bad? No. They moved the goalpost and said, he's creating weapons of mass destruction. Now, the implication there was he's going to create them and use them on, like, Cleveland or something. And that wasn't true. Not only was he not going to use it on us, he didn't even fucking have them. He didn't even have them. He didn't even have them. And then when that blew up, they moved the goalpost again to, well, he's a dictator and that's bad. Okay, yeah, that's bad, but we also supported him at the height of his atrocities. You didn't have a moral issue with that at the time. And also, we support 73% of the world's dictatorships. This idea of, we got to overthrow the dictators. Are you going to overthrow 73% of the world's dictatorships, which, by the way, are our allies? No, of course not. So he's moved the goalposts. And the entire time, it was total bullshit. Iraq had a lot to do with the oil. It had a lot to do with the profits for the military-industrial complex. It had a lot to do with imperialism. And this is the reality. To call them war criminals is obvious. It's the most obvious thing in the world. It's so obvious. And still, to this day, Republican politicians they refuse to acknowledge the reality. And by the way, that's one of the reasons why Trump in 2016 was more of a breath of fresh air than any of the other Republicans. Because he would rail against the Bush administration, and he would rail against the Iraq war. And when Jeb Bush would say dumb things like, my brother kept us safe, Trump would be like, the towers came down under his watch. That, of course, is not safe. That was the biggest failure. And he had a memo on his desk that said, bin Laden determined to attack in the U.S., and he wasn't able to stop it. So, anyway, I'm off track here. But the bottom line is, yeah, he's a war criminal. That's a fact. And if you don't like it, that's your problem. That's, you haven't digested the reality that oftentimes, even though we cloak ourselves in the language of virtuousness and being all that is good and just in the world, it's nonsense. And every empire throughout history does that. No empire, when they're committing atrocities, is like, we are now committing atrocities. No, they say we're crusading for the correct values, whatever those values are at the time and place. And that's what we do. But these guys are so dumb, they haven't digested that point, and they never will, because they don't want to. They would honestly argue with me and be like, no, Bush was good. Okay, if you say so. But it's based that she represented some Guantanamo detainees. It absolutely is. And it's based that there was a filing where Bush was officially accused of war crimes. And that doesn't make me like her less. It makes me like her more. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.